Hello everyone. So as promised, this video is going to focus on the assignments and the learning experiences in our TESL 928 course. So let's go ahead and start with the syllabus, and then we will come back here to our home page in Blackboard to take a look at exactly what the modules and the assignments will look like. So if you click here on syllabus, it will take you to our course syllabus, which is the Google Doc that we discussed in our last video. And if you scroll down, you will find a section in here titled Learning Experiences and Course Assignments. So this syllabus details our four main learning experiences and assignments, okay? So let's go ahead and start with the modules. So you can find those online modules back in Blackboard in this section here that says online modules. Remember, those are 5 Google pages that give you the readings, videos, and reflective questions to help you make sense of the content and apply your understanding to the course objectives. Okay. So those are the online modules. Remember, they're self-paced. How you will demonstrate your learning that you have achieved through these online modules is through a threaded discussion board called Thinking Aloud on Blackboard, or TABS. And so each of your learning modules will contain a series of reflective questions. Those reflective questions are just to help you think more deeply about the course content and kind of starting to make sense of your own understanding of what effective English language teaching is, and how we develop a more sensitive and responsive cultural understanding and awareness. Um, and they also help you to make connections to your own teaching practice. I know many of you already are teachers at your school. So what you'll do in this Thinking Aloud on Blackboard is pick one of those reflective questions from across all of the modules that you really connected with and you felt that you had something to contribute to our larger discussion, and you'll compose a short discussion post in Blackboard. This post should be about a minimum of 300 words. Try not to go over 500 words in length, and you should then post that in the discussion board and make sure that you read and reply to 2 of your classmates' tab posts. Now, just a tip on helping to get the conversation started, knowing that you'll be replying to each other, is you might want to end your tab post with a question to the group, or asking your classmates to respond to what you have said in some way. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our home page, and I'll show you what the discussion board looks like. Let me actually enter student preview mode. Okay, so this is what you will see. So if you go to the Thinking Aloud on Blackboard, you notice what I did was I compiled a whole document that contains all of the questions from across the modules. So I've compiled each of those reflective questions from your modules here. So as I said, what you'll do is pick one of these questions to answer. And this is one question across all of the modules. Do not think you need to pick one question from each module. Okay, so just one question across all of the modules, whether it's module 1, module 2, module 5, etc. Okay, so once you pick your reflective question, if you go here to Thinking Aloud on Blackboard, you'll notice you can create a thread. So if you click here, you'll see another compilation of all the questions, and here is where you can type in your 300 to 500 word discussion post. Okay. Once you have that done, you can give yourself a title, maybe your name, and a title of your answer, and then you can just hit submit. Okay. What I really recommend doing is using a Word document to maybe type out your message. And then once you do that, you can copy and paste into this toolbox. I say that just because I have been the victim of typing in a beautiful long post and then hitting submit and having a problem, and I've lost all of my work, all of that text that I had typed in. So just a recommendation, use a Word document, type in the answer to your post, and then copy and paste it here into Blackboard. Okay. So once you submit, you'll see the discussion thread. You'll see all of your classmates' discussion threads. You can then just reply to a thread of your choice. I would say try to pick a classmate's post to reply on that focuses on a question that was different from the one that you answered, just so that you might expand the conversation. I'm not requiring it, but it's just a helpful tip to kind of help make more sense of the content. Okay, so that's the tabs here. The tab is due by June 30th, so just be aware that you can go across all those 5 modules at your own pace, as fast or as slow as you want. Just make sure that you get in your original post and your replies ahead of that due date. I will say please try not to post your first tab post at, let's say, 10 p.m. on June 30th. When you do that, it creates a time crunch for everyone else to be able to have a tab to respond to. So just be aware of that date. Try to post well ahead of the deadline so that we can foster a rich discussion online and not put pressure on our classmates to be up all night waiting for everyone to post their tabs on June 30th. Okay. The second assignment is going to be your capstone project peer review. Now let's kind of backwards plan from the original capstone project. Your capstone project is going to be a project of your choice. The reason why I have included choice in your final assignment is that part of being culturally relevant and responsive to students, especially students who come from different cultural backgrounds, is acknowledging and validating that they have different ideas and different ways of demonstrating understanding of course objectives and course material. So, in keeping faithful to this philosophy, our assignment will use choice as well. So, here I have a couple of ideas for what your capstone project could be. You could synthesize your understanding of this course into creating a lesson plan that focuses on teaching English as a second or foreign language and that integrates aspects of culture into that lesson plan. You could do a teaching philosophy paper. A teaching philosophy is basically a paper that discusses and with evidence what your beliefs, what you believe to be effective and good teaching and learning of a language. You could also choose to do a mission statement. Many schools or classrooms, even classrooms themselves, have a vision of what they believe comprises good and effective learning and teaching, and how the school or how your classroom achieves these objectives. The other thing you could do is a professional development PowerPoint or another article or an infographic that it helps your colleagues to learn from you about what makes effective language teaching. Lastly, you can also propose your own project. If you have an idea of a project that's not a lesson plan, a philosophy paper, etc., feel free to email me and let me know, and I'm happy to consider that project. For example, a student in another section of this course created a plan for an English language club after school at her school. So that was one of the projects that she thought of on her own and submitted as her capstone project. Okay. So the capstone project you'll work on, but alongside of that capstone project, you'll compose a Dear Professor memo. And a Dear Professor memo is simply a letter about 1 page that explains how your capstone project reflects your understanding and your learning of the 5 course objectives. The 5 course objectives can be found on page 1 of our course syllabus. So if you go back to our syllabus, you'll see that by the end of this class, you are expected to have met these 5 course objectives. So for being able to compare linguistic components, identifying learners' successes and difficulties, all the way down to developing cultural awareness. Okay, so make sure that you pay attention to these objectives. Now, in this Dear Professor memo, the Dear Professor memo will basically explain to me how your project reflects your learning of these 5 objectives. So how you use the content of our class to show how you understand cultural awareness, how you've developed some different intercultural practices, okay, as an example. I have an example of one from another class, so if you click here, you'll see an example of what a student composed in a 2-page letter to the professor. So this is just an example of what it would look like. So I highly recommend visiting and reading through that memo. I've also included some reflective questions here for you to help you start writing that letter to me. Okay. So working backwards from the capstone project, there is going to be a opportunity to work with each other in giving feedback on each other's capstone projects and memos. So here's going to be a discussion thread, and what you will do is just post a rough draft of your capstone project and your Dear Professor memo within a discussion board. So if you click through, you'll see it's another discussion thread here. I also included a little checklist form to help you review each other's work. So you'll notice that there's a little checklist to help organize your thoughts. Your thoughts should go to the capstone project author, as well as be posted in this discussion forum so that I can see your review and your feedback. Okay. So this peer review, um, you're also going to include kind of a practice run of the Dear Professor memo, but instead of being addressed to me, the professor, it will be addressed to your classmates. So Dear Colleague memo instead of a Dear Professor memo. And you'll do the same as you would do for the Dear Professor memo. You'll answer these questions, talk about how your project is meeting the 5 objectives of the course. But what I would like for you to do that's a little different in the Dear Colleague memo versus the Dear Professor memo is to ask your classmates for specific types of feedback. So, for example, perhaps you composed a lesson plan as your capstone project. Your Dear Colleague memo should end with some sort of ask of your colleagues saying something like, on my lesson plan, I would really like feedback on if I've included enough interaction amongst my students in the lesson plan. Something like that asks your colleagues to look for some specific types of feedback that they can give within your project. So I know the capstone project is a little different from maybe other courses that you have taken, in that you have this element of choice. You get to pick what your final project will be, the format of it, etc., as well as you'll get to do this peer review and these different memos to your classmates and professors. Because this is a little different, I've also included some resources to help you. So you'll notice here I have posted the example of the Dear Professor memo again, but I've also included some examples of different types of projects you can do. So you'll notice here, if you're thinking of writing a lesson plan, here's a little list of what you typically include in an effective language lesson plan. You'll see here an example of a completed lesson plan that I have taught in the past in my own teaching experience. So you'll see an example of a lesson plan. For example, for your teaching philosophy, you'll also see something, various different types of teaching philosophies that have been written, as well as some guidance for what to include in a teaching philosophy, etc., and on down. Okay. So this is just a brief overview of the assignment. Our first virtual office hours on June 16th. I will be available to answer any specific questions that you have now that you've had a chance to kind of go over the syllabus, look at these orientation videos, etc. So I plan to spend this first 90-minute virtual office hours being available to talk you through further about this project and answer the questions or concerns that you may have. Okay, so this is the video. Feel free to browse around on your own within Blackboard to familiarize yourself with the assignments and be ready to ask some questions in our first virtual office hours. If you cannot make the virtual office hours, please feel free to email me your questions and I'll get back to you. Thank you so much.